So, Voestalpine is a globally active group with a lot of specialized companies in producing, processing, and further developing steel products. The headquarters of the group is situated in Linz in Austria. We have about 300 production and sales companies in more than 60 countries worldwide. Voestalpine is one of Europe's leading partners to the automotive, white goods, and energy industries. Furthermore, we are the world market leader in turnout technology, tool steel, and special sections. The Voestalpine Group generated, in summary, 8.6 billion euros for the last fiscal year. Our fiscal year runs from April to March, so it is 2009-10. And we employ about 40,000 staff. Half of the staff employed in Austria, the other half worldwide. I think that's enough for a short overview of the group.
I'm quite pleased that you deal with heavy metal.
Starting with the development of our model in Austria, and still the basis for all later international models, was our aim to achieve a so-called strategic ownership in the hands of the workforce. Our idea in the year 2000 was to combine mainly strategic objectives for the further development of the group with the possibility to participate in the company's success, both by share ownership of the staff. A wide share ownership by the employees makes them core shareholders and gives so stability to the shareholder structure. As the Austrian corporate law provides a squeeze-out level of 90%, so a share ownership of more than 10% helps to defend against hostile takeover bids. The bundled shareholder rights give the opportunity to participate in very important decision-making processes on the level of the shareholders. On the other side, we like to give the opportunities for financial benefits in our plan. So supported by the different bonuses of the employer, we will see later on in the different models, and using national tax advantages, mainly the employees can participate in the success of the group with the annual dividend payment and a possible later on increase in the share price. Here you can see our current structure of the shareholder. The graph shows the nationality of the share owners, but more important for our today's item are the structure of the main shareholders you can see in the right corner. We only have 3 core shareholders in the group. In Austria, the exchange law says that every share owner owning more than 5% had to announce. So we have 3 shareholders who announce more than 5%. 2 of them are regional banks, and you can see the employees themselves are the second biggest shareholders of the group. By now we hold 13.3% of all the voting rights of the group. The concept of strategic ownership necessitates a bundling of voting rights, as more than 20,000 employees cannot express their interest within the shareholder meetings individually. We organize the administration of the model, including, for example, share purchase, or also sending out the account informations, and also discussing about the further development of the group within a foundation. We call it Voestalpine Mitarbeiterbeteiligung Privatstiftung. But the important activity of our foundation in today's discussion is the foundation exercises the voting rights for all of the more than 20,000 employee shareholders of the group. How we bundle these voting rights and how we make the decision-making process, I will try to explain in the next slides. But let me give some short remarks on the structure of our foundation. Both bodies, the more operative management board and the controlling advisory board, both bodies are assigned from the management and the Works Council half by half. And this shows the situation that our model of employee participation was from the very beginning on a development of both sides within the company. And it's still supported from both sides. Also an important remark on the supervisory board of the group itself. In Austria we have a dualistic system of corporate governance. So we have in all companies with more than 300 employees, we do have supervisory boards. We have a management board and an extra supervisory board in all the bigger companies with more than 300 employees. We also have in Voestalpine. So this supervisory board is nominated 1/3 by the Works Council and 2/3 by the shareholders, elected by the annual shareholder meeting. And since 2004, we have been able to nominate one shareholder representative by the foundation to the supervisory board of the group. So we have a place on the supervisory board representing the employee shareholder within the group. The first model was the Austrian model. We started in the year 2000. The general principles I would like to express will show that our Austrian model is very tightly connected with the special Austrian labor law. So it isn't possible to export it to other countries because of this special clause in the labor law. In Austria it's possible to use a part of the yearly negotiated wage increase for other purposes. So if on the national level, we have national level this negotiation of collective bargaining, valid for all the companies in the country, it's not possible to go away. So if on this level there is an opening clause in the collective bargaining, it's possible to use a certain amount of the wage increase for other purposes, pension funds or anything else. In our group, we use this fact to build up a broad-based employee share ownership plan. It's important to say that we did it 6 times since 2000. It's important to say that in each time, the wage you use for, in our case, for share plans is above the negotiated minimum wage of collective bargaining. So it's always above. And secondly, not to forget, in each case, it was possible that the part we use for allocating shares, there is an additional payment by the employer, so the employees get, in summary, more shares than they would have as gross salary otherwise. So it's a bonus by the employer, in this case in Austria, on the way of collective bargaining. In the international model, we will see later on, it's the other way around to give this employer bonus. The second way to finance the employee share ownership plan in Austria is we do have the tradition for bonus payment in economic good running years, to say. So in a part of the yearly bonus payment is given in form of shares in Austria. So these are the 2 main ways to finance the plan. Also to say, today nearly 1% of all our shares which are administered by the foundation are held by retired employees or by active employees which additionally purchases shares without price reduction and give it to the administration, give their voting rights to the foundation. So in sum, there is 1% of the shares from retired or additionally active employees. The bundling of the voting rights, as I mentioned before, a very basic thing in our model, we organize with escrows. Maybe it's hard to explain, but in Austria we make a distinction between a proxy agreement and an escrow. A proxy agreement is a yearly proxy for the voting rights for one annual shareholder meeting. An escrow is a long-lasting agreement. We make a distinction between the economic right and the civil right of a share. You are, in the economic view, you are the owner of the share, but you are able to give the civil rights, the voting rights also, for example, not in our case, but it would be possible to give the right for dividend payment, other persons, foundation, trusts. So we handle escrows, and the employees in Austria give their voting rights for the whole employment in the group. So in a very long view, a young person, 20 years, gives the voting rights for the next 40 years to the foundation. When he leaves the group, then he gets the shares. He is individual owner of the shares. He gets real shares, not part of the founders, but he had the shares. But it ended with the end of the employment. This is specific in Austria. We will see in the international model, we have a more or less usual 5-year period of blocking. Yes. Currently, we have about 20,500 employees in Austria integrated in the plan. We have in Austria 49 companies in the group. All of the 49 companies are integrated. And these employees hold about 13.3% of the voting rights. In some, this is 22.4 million of the shares are held by the employees. Since 2000, Voestalpine gets more and more, in a very fast way, an international group. So it was clear to develop an international model, and it was also clear that it was not possible to export our model to other European or other countries because of the specific situation in Austria. I have forgotten maybe an important thing on the slide. In Austria, we have a tax relief, tax reduction for allocation of shares. So if you get shares from your own employer, it's possible to get them tax-free and free of social contribution, hence a yearly amount of 1,460 euros. And we use this tax benefit in the Austrian model. So in the international model, the aim was to offer the same, or to give the same offer to all the employees in the different countries, independently of the national tax advantages, and they differ in a very strong way, as we know. The group, the offer is the self-investment is matched by a bonus share. So the relation is 3:1. For 3 shares purchased by self-investment, there is 1 share matched by the employer. So this offer is the same in all countries. The result, the net result, differs very much in the European countries. We have a range for the self-investment. The yearly minimum contribution is 300 euros and the maximum contribution is 2,500 euros a year for the self-investment. The offer is connected to 2 conditions. One is there is a blocking period for 5 years. This is, differs from the Austrian model, a blocking period of 5 years, and very important for our idea of the strategic ownership is the voting rights are concentrated and exercised by the foundation, also of the international version of the model. So we concentrate all the voting rights, not only from the Austrian, but also for the international colleagues in our foundation here in der Voestalpine Mitarbeiterbeteiligung Privatstiftung. We started with a specific model in Netherlands in the year 2004. Learning from this experience, making a special national model, we decided to make one international model which should be able to practice in all different countries. So we worked a very long way to find a model which can run in the different circumstances. And we tried to, in some pilots, we tested our model in the year 2009 in UK and Germany. With the good experience following this test, we expand and rolled out our program now in UK and Germany. So the result by now, currently we integrate 32 companies in the Netherlands, in UK, in Germany. We invited about 6,000 employees in these 3 countries to participate in the employee participation. About 15% followed this invitation. The range of the participation rate differs very much. It runs from about 11% in Germany, 15% in the Netherlands, but more than 50% in the UK. And this is also, in my opinion, it's an express of very different tax advantages we have in these different countries. We have heard from Heinrich yesterday the 360 euros tax advantages in Germany. In Netherlands, we use the national saving plans, so there is a tax advantages for 1,226 euros and a very wide tax advantages in the UK. The first step for an international bundling of voting rights is to find the legal basis in the national circumstances to do this. This is the first step. But the next step is how to organize the decision-making processes in, by now, more than 80 companies to find one connected, one bundled vote for the annual shareholder meeting. To find a common voting behavior, we use the structure of the European Works Council within the group. So the office of the EWC sent the agenda of the shareholder meeting and also the first proposal of the steering committee of the EWC to the national representatives, to the different representatives of the works councillors in the companies. In companies where we do not have any workers' representations, we ask the human resource managers to distribute the proposals of the steering committee of the EWC. The office of the EWC collected all the responses, discussing the different responses, and then making one common vote. And with this proposal, the representatives of the workforce, in the advisory board of the foundation, give this statement within the foundation. The head of the foundation, the head of the management board of the foundation, he is a works councillor himself, goes to the annual shareholder meeting and gives this statement within the assembly. Summing up, I would like to give some remarks on our experience of exercising the voting rights. Maybe we have to have a short look on the Austrian situation and the Austrian legal and traditional basis to understand our experience. In Austria, we do have, maybe how to say, a deep-rooted tradition for social dialogue. Bernard yesterday named it, we call it social partnership. And this social partnership is on the legal base, but also on the tradition, cultural base within the company. So we are used, or our works councillors are used to be integrated in a social dialogue. They are used to be informed, and by legal base, they have to be informed about the economic figures of the enterprise. So we have a tradition to be integrated also in economic development and information of economic development. And as I mentioned before, in all the bigger companies, bigger more than 300 employees, the works councillors are also part of the supervisory board. So they are part of a very important decision-making body. But it's important to say that the works councillors, the unions, are not on the same level than the management. It's no co-determination in our companies. It's a cooperation, it's the use to being part of a social dialogue, but no co-determination, not to draw the wrong picture of our situation. But it's important that all the rights on the labor law, on the corporate law, we do have for our worker representatives are restricted to internal processes. So for very important decisions which are made and which are only made by the shareholders, we do not have any legal base by now. So we are part of the supervisory board, but if there is, for example, a very important decision of restructuring a company, of bringing a listed company to a limited company, or of dividing a company, these decisions are made by the shareholders, and we do not have, our works councillors do not have any possibility to influence this discussion. So we want to be part of this discussion. With 13% of the voting rights, you can't control the company, but you be an important part of the discussion. After our 10 years of experience, we had a lot of different outcomes of the employee participation model. I will try to summarize especially the outcomes of the bundled voting rights. We think that with the right to nominate one of the 8 shareholder representatives of the supervisory board, the employees, the shareholders, employee shareholders are an important part of the decision, of important company decisions. Not to control, as to say again, but to be part of a decision, to influence a discussion from the very beginning on. The employees held more than 30% of the shares. We are convinced that this is a long-lasting, stable element for the shareholder structure of the group. In such a way, these employee shareholders give stability to the whole development of the company and to develop long-term strategies. Especially connected to the Austrian law, being above the 10% level for the squeeze-out, the employee shareholders can be a deterrent for an unfriendly takeover bid, because it is not possible to force a minority equity of more than 10% to sell the shares in cases of unfriendly takeovers. In general, to say that employee equity ownership is not a management control, but we are convinced that it can be a possibility to influence important discussions and important decision-making processes. And in this way, it could be a new kind of corporate governance. I would like to say that the employee share ownership is not and should not be a replacement of a social dialogue or a labor law which exactly defines the rights of the workforce. But it can be a complementing of existing rights on new levels, especially on the level of the shareholder meeting. From the very beginning on of our model, we told our colleagues that employee equity ownership isn't a guarantee for a single workplace. And in Austria,